Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hack Check podcast. I'm really excited again for this episode. We've got a very special guest, Bokang Masunyane, Little Giant BK.
Thanks for having me, and very excited to be having a chat with you.
Awesome, man. So, how's your camp going? We had a bit of a chat about it outside, but second time around, you're fighting Hirobo Minowa. Am I
Yeah,
saying that correctly?
yes, that's right.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
how's the camp going around this time?
yeah. Camp is going tough, but if the camp is tough, then it's good. You don't want to have a good camp, easy camp. You want to actually have as hard as you can so you can fight easy.
Mm.
So right now, camp is going very hard, and I believe because of that, my fighting is going to become easy. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get the second chance to fight Horibwa. With last time missing hydration, it's actually the other athlete's choice to either fight the guy or not. But Horibwa refused the fight, so I think that was a lesson for me learned.
Mm.
And now I'm fixing my hydration. Even skinnier, I'm walking smaller than I usually do, which is perfect. Dieting for the
Mm.
first time actually I fight ever. It's my first time where I actually go on a diet where I have to eat clean because usually just cut the weight. Cutting weight is easy, but
Mm.
with the hydration thing in one championship, it's very difficult now. So
Mm.
yeah,
What's the exact process? Like, Don gave me a bit of a breakdown of it, and I've seen, that you can't have too many fluctuations during fight week.
yeah.
Um, but other than, featherweight, for example, meaning something else in ONE FC than it does in say UFC, what is the main like sort of process for the weight cutting? So like this is the first time you've had to diet.
Yeah.
How far out do they weigh you? There's a hydration part. Like, what is the actual process?
Yeah, so they weigh us at the week of the fight. So they weigh us twice, three times before the fight. And the idea is to actually fight at the weight that you walk around at. But of course, there's always athletes that find a way to jeopardize the
Mm-hmm.
system. And for me, it was I'm so used to walking around at the high weights and just cutting that weight quick without going on a diet and all that, and it's always been fine. The crazy thing is I used to fight at heavier weight divisions,
Mm-hmm.
and I still had to cut weight there.
Oh, really?
No, sorry, not cut weights. I was still dehydrated,
Yeah.
which was crazy. So I'll fight at the heavier weight class and still be dehydrated. So for me, being hydrated was a very new thing.
Mm.
We used to still joke about it at the gym in Coach Kwan and in Medford that I must drink water always because I'd be fine with a liter of water a day with all the amount of training.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
so
not nearly enough.
yes, and which was actually according to studies and everything, it's actually bad for
Of
you.
course.
And yeah, so now the system has forced me to be hydrated and actually to go on a diet and eat clean and become a better athlete.
Mm.
And so I think I like that about what they do in one. So they make sure that you're not even 5% higher on the day of the fight at
Wow.
the weight you fight at,
Yeah.
which is quite nice. That means you fight someone your own size,
Mm.
someone your own weight. And for me, I have to fight at straw weight, which is from 52 kgs to 56 kgs, because even there I'm one of the shortest guys.
Mm.
So it's the closest where I'll fight the guys my size.
Mm.
And yeah, I've been asked to go weight class higher, but I think I want to stick with it with my strawweight division, so that I master being at my weight and fight
Mm.
where I am.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the guys obviously in the weight above you at 135 would be longer, rangier. So there's advantages and disadvantages to going up, right?
Yes, of course. Like I wouldn't mind doing a super fight at the weight class higher than me. But like I said, I fought at higher weight classes before, and I fought back then. I fought at bantamweight,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I held my I held myself well
Yeah,
there.
of course, yeah.
And but I've been given an opportunity to fight guys that are similar to my size, and my goal is to win the title
Mm.
at strawweight, and then play around with either fighting at the higher weight divisions or moving around to other promotions, and actually exploring fighting career.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you and Hiroba, I keep butchering the name.
Uh,
You guys are both fought the champion, uh,
Jared
Jared
Brooks,
Brooks. Yeah.
yes, that's
So
right.
is this a title eliminator now again, or?
So I think so, because he's the number one, he's the number three contender, and I'm the number two contender. And if Jared doesn't get a rematch with Joshua Pasio, which I assume they'll give Joshua
Mm-hmm.
Pasio a rematch, but if he doesn't, I'm definitely calling Jared Brooks out after my win with Horiba,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be nice to have a rematch against them, because the last fight he beat me fair and square,
Mm.
and he actually put me to sleep
Mm-hmm.
with the rear naked choke. So I'd like to have my revenge back, or I'd love to fight him where I'm now in a different mental space, and better shape, and
Mm.
better training, or well, better prepared. So I'd love to have another title shot against them, because I
Mm.
want to be the first South African world champion or African world champion in a major
Organization.
organization. Yeah,
Mm.
and saying that, like, there's a lot of African champions in other different organizations, but there's never been a African champion in a big organization that lives in Africa.
Mm.
So I'm not taking away from any
Tomorrow
other
Usman or
champions,
anybody.
yes,
Yeah.
but also what Dricus, just to bring it back, what Dricus said, he was right by saying he wants to be the first African, to actually bring the title back to Africa.
Mm.
And that's my job, or that's my goal, to do in one, to be the first African to bring a title back to Africa.
Mm. And it's a great goal. I mean, it's for both you and for Dricus to go. And there's other fighters as well, like Don himself as well, that also has a chance. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting to see who wins the race
Yeah.
to be the first champion to bring it back to Africa. Just on that, were the comments Dricus had a bit of backlash. It was mainly actually strange enough outside of South Africa.
Yeah.
Were you like fairly surprised by the way some people reacted to his comments, or?
In a way, I wasn't surprised, um, because there's always different sides to the story. And from where I heard Dricus from my side of the story, and that applies to every South African or African that saw it, we know what Dricus meant.
Mm.
And I back Dricus on that. What he meant is bringing it as a first African back to Africa, And Kumaro and all those other guys, they didn't grow up in Africa, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So they are American citizens. They've grown up in America or in all other countries.
Mm.
So they don't sleep every day, train every day in Africa, and then go out to different countries and go challenge themselves there.
Mm.
And that's what Rickus meant. And look, I'm also on that race. I also I want to be the first African to bring a major title to Africa, and I want to be part of that. So I want to be part of that, because I believe it's a healthy race.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in big different organizations, and we're trying to bring the title home.
Mm.
As much as, if everyone can bring that back home, or all the top African fighters can bring the titles home, that's actually even great.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that he wants to be the first. I also want to be the first.
Mm.
So now we're all in a race. Don Match is also fighting in a very big organization. We've got Chad fighting at
Yeah,
Brave,
Chad Honeycomb, yeah.
and Demart actually fought in Aries, and
Yes.
he actually won the title. So it's almost like, how big is Aries? And it's also almost a thing of South Africans are bringing titles back to
Mm-hmm.
Africa, instead of living elsewhere and then fighting there and just being an African champ wherever you are.
Mm.
There's actually African champs now coming from from Africa.
Mm.
And honestly, Dimat is one of them. He's done it already.
Yeah.
Drinkers, I think, did it also with KSW.
Yes.
So that's perfect. We're trying to grow the sport, and we want to be the gateway to the next generation of mixed martial arts.
And
I
have
believe we're
people,
doing that.
young kids, actually have someone to be able to point to and say, BK did it, or Don did it, or Drikus. That's very important because, again, I always go back to Conor McGregor's story where he said, when he told his parents, I want to be an MMA fighter, they said, well, point to somebody that's doing it from Ireland. And he couldn't. So
Yeah.
he had to trailblaze and he had to be the person that was doing it. And all of you are doing it. And I like the way you describe it, healthy competition.
Yeah.
You're all going to drive each other to do it.
Yes.
Because there are hardships to just, Cameron spoke about it a little bit. It's like trying to be a champion of a major organization, that's hard enough. And then it's like trying to do it, and he was going through steps, and like then trying to do it out of Africa. It's just,
Yeah.
it's different.
Yeah, it is. I remember also fighting out of South Africa for the first time. That was a very big step I've taken. My first fought in Pancrase before I went into one championship, and it was scary because I'm so used to fighting at home, home crowd, home support, and I fought two international guys that came home, and I knew I had a home advantage towards me, and had great performance there. And now it's fighting somewhere else where you have to try to put up a performance or try to win. It's a lot of pressure, and I think regarding to that, we geez, I literally lost myself. Sorry there.
Fighting overseas.
Yeah, regarding to fighting overseas, it's a big challenge. It's very tough for anyone. But I think we are doing that because Africa is behind with martial arts in meaning of growth and everything else. So it's very important for us to make sure that we become very recognizable, and it's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, we're the last sort of continent. It was us and Australasia really that were kind of, or Europe, if you want to take them as well, but they weren't even that far behind because they've had kickboxing for decades and they've had judo wrestling. But we, as Africa, we are the last sort of untapped gem, if you want to call it, a place for martial arts. So any martial art besides boxing, really. And that's why, again, what you guys are doing, trailblazing, getting people eyes onto African fighters. I mean, we were looking at some of the stuff, and we'll have a look at it later. But some of the videos, like the captions, it's all ninja style, and that style could be a defining style. It's your defining style at the moment, but that could be the defining style for South Africa, where people are doing stuff that the world hasn't seen before.
Yeah.
So it really is what you guys are doing for South Africa is just, we all see it and appreciate it, and hopefully in the next couple of years, there'll be champions and organizations that there haven't been before.
Yeah. Look, I like that ninja thing you said. It's always been an idea in my fighting style. I've always thought of, trying to, if you remember the Jackie Chan movies back in the days, they were so entertaining, and it was like, wow, I've never seen this move before. Wow, how did he do that? Then that's the idea of for me of trying to fight is evolving the sport and trying to do moves that has never been done before. Well, most of the moves have been done, but it's like it's only a few percentage of people that do it. And for moves like that to come out of Africa, and that's my idea of it. And I believe that Africa has a big potential of martial art fighters that are still to come because of the way we eat in Africa, the food, and just the struggle in Africa. There's still a lot of, it's almost like the African continent is a warrior continent, and there's still a lot. And like, geez, I'm actually one of the smallest people in Africa, so there's still so much potential of big fighters, So I think within the next few years, Africa will take over the mixed martial arts.
Mm. And you spoke about hardships, and I want to get back to way at the beginning, because you've had a lot of like hardships that you've had to overcome in your life and your career. Um, you grew up in an orphanage for a large part of your childhood, right?
Yeah.
What were you? What age did you first go to the orphanage, or what? How did you
Yes.
get there?
Yeah. So crazy thing is, I got to the orphanage when I was 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say I was lucky enough that the principal at that time at the school I was in um, recognized the struggle in where I was going through with my brothers and sisters, and he decided to take a step to to give us an opportunity or to at least find someone that can actually help the family out.
Mm.
And he got us contacts to the orphanage, and they actually took us in. And that's when I actually, with before then, I actually that's how I got into wrestling. Before I even got into MMA back then, I was still around 8 years old, and I decided to try the sport wrestling. Crazy
Mm.
thing, I got in a fight in the orphanage. And I actually threw one of the kids off the jungle gym. I don't know if
Oh,
you know those
yeah. That is
playgrounds. Yes. So
the old wooden ones with the little platform
yeah,
at the top. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So one of my friends at that time, he was being bullied by this kid, and it didn't sit right with me, you
Mm.
know. And actually, I lost my shit, you know, and I just got angry and I just ran to this kid and I literally just grabbed him and threw him off the jungle gym.
Sure.
I jumped all the way down from the top. Instead of going down the
Yeah.
slide, I
Yeah. The
just
little. Yeah.
jumped, yeah, and I just didn't wait and I just sat on his chest and I started throwing punch, but that was just out of anger, you know.
Mm.
And of course, they took us out, the ladies there or the parents there that looked after us took us, heard the story, and they actually punished us, you know,
Mm.
which I think was right. They punished all of us, all three of us,
Mm.
for what happened because we got into a fight, you know, and my cousin was there to actually notice the fight, what happened. And he was like, "You are definitely coming to the wrestling classes."
Mm.
And since then, I went into the wrestling classes and I fell in love with it, you know. And it was, yeah, it was the first day I got onto the mat. It was just something special, you know,
Mm.
like knowing where I came from and the type of life I had. It was refreshing for me. It was almost like therapy, you know. And
Mm.
I was lucky enough to have found something like that I could be passionate about at that age, only at
Mm.
8 years old. And since then, I've never looked back. You know, I carried on to win 23 SA titles. I won
Wow.
3 African championships, and then I competed in the Commonwealth Games.
Mm.
And even before competing in the Commonwealth Games, there was this Russian coach that used to see me in the tournament, and very loud guy. His name
Mm.
was Alibek, and also very passionate about wrestling, you know. And he saw me wrestle against these other kids, and I used to wrestle barefoot. Normally, you have wrestling shoes and
Mm-hmm.
all that, and I'll wrestle barefoot, but I'll just give those kids a run of their money. You know, I'll just wrestle. Sometimes I'll even cry wrestling. You know, just I don't know. I think it
What,
was the fact
frustration or
that
anger or what was
yes,
it?
I think so, or just the fact there's times where I could see I was losing and I was getting behind and I was
Right.
getting frustrated from that. And I think I just wanted to just keep winning. And I was lucky enough for that Russian guy to have seen that potential.
Mm.
And he said to me, "I want to make you my son one day because I can make you a world champion one day."
Wow.
And that just brought a smile into my face because as an orphan, the biggest thing I believe every orphan would like to have is to have a family or
Mm.
someone that actually cares for them, you know. Um, reason why I remember being at school and just seeing other parents, how they had a family, a mother, loving mother, and loving dad, you know. And I think that was something I've always looked forward to.
Mm.
And when he said that, it just lightened my eyes, you know, it just lightened my heart. And yeah, and every time I saw him, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna adopt you one day, or I'm gonna get someone to adopt you. I'm gonna make you a world champion one day."
Mm.
And one of the wrestling matches, my coach was actually busy coaching in the on the other mat, and there was no one to coach me. And he actually sat in my corner,
Wow.
the Russian guy. Oh, then my face lighted up, and I was just ready to go. And crazy enough, I lost that match,
Mm.
and but he was so proud. I couldn't understand why is he so proud. I just lost. It's like you fought with heart. You've got a heart of a lion.
Oh, nice.
And then that just made me happy.
Mm.
And then he went back, and I'll probably say a few weeks later, one of the ladies came to me, or our guardians that looked after us, and said, "There's someone that actually spoke about wanting to adopt you and want you to go wrestle by them. He's a Russian coach,
Wow.
and he's gonna get someone else to adopt you, because of course." He still had his Russian
Citizenship and
citizenship,
passport.
so he couldn't go on with adoptions, but he was able to find someone to do that. And my current family that I live with, or that adopted me, Afrikaans family, very, very, very nice and loving, and very traditional family, which was quite nice. So that's why, sorry, just to cut that's why that stigma, look, that stigma of racism for me, it's very hard to see, like, because these are very traditional Afrikaans people that adopted me, and they saw no race or no color on that. It's for me beautiful.
It
But
is.
yeah, anyways, going back to
Sorry, can I ask you?
that,
So you
yeah.
still stay with the same family that
Yes, I
adopted
still
you?
with them. I see them almost every second weekend or whenever, which is
Mm.
quite nice.
Mm.
And yeah, they've
At what
been
age did they adopt you?
at 13. 13, I was turning 14 the following year, and
Nice.
that's when they took me in. And so the guardian came and said, "Look, this Russian guy spoke to someone. They want to adopt you, and first you're gonna have to go visit them
Mm.
before." And then so I went to go visit them for one of the holidays, and they were so loving, and full family. Back then, they had 2 kids back then,
Mm-hmm.
and
Brothers
the
or sisters for you?
one brother, one sister,
Nice.
yes. And I was so happy. I was like, wow, this is God giving me a second chance, a second chance to life. And I was so grateful. Like I just, it's almost like it'd be a crime for me not to be grateful
Mm.
for what was happening in my life, because it was such a big change, and
Mm.
it feels like God was answering my prayers.
Mm.
And the first time I met the boy, he was like, he told dad, "Papa, is he really Sian?" And then
Mm.
dad's like, "Yeah, yeah, Sian." Yo, my so clean, because I'm so
Okay.
short,
Yeah.
And the kid was still like 6 years old, 5 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
And his name is actually Liam.
Mm.
21 years old now, and he's a very good brother of mine. I love
Mm.
him. I love him to bits. And so it was funny. After I said that, we were laughing about it in the car,
Mm.
and
I'm sure at the time you were a little bit annoyed, but now it's something nice to look back at.
yes, yeah. So yeah, the thing is, when he said it, or when my dad told me, he said it as a joke, which
Mm.
made it,
Calm
yeah,
the
because I
mood.
think, yeah,
Okay.
it feels like sometimes things are said and they come out bad.
Right.
But when it said that, it was just funny, and we just laughed about it. And
Mm.
like the fact that he took that situation and made it easy for me to get comfortable with him.
Mm.
And yeah, and lived with them for a few weeks, and I was quite happy. And and then all the paperwork and everything had to go through, and then I lived with them that following year,
Mm.
and it was such a big change in my life. Different environment and everything else. And I did promise myself then, whatever I do, I have to try. I have to do it to the best ability, because I
Mm.
believe, I've seen a lot of talented kids in the orphanage, that didn't have the same opportunity as I have, and I think it's very disrespectful for me not to live to my true potential.
Mm.
And I believe that if anything, that I had won in life. I had won the lotto of the orphanage.
Mm.
Any kid that gets adopted or gets to live with the family gets a second chance to live with the family.
100%.
That's a lottery to anyone, and I believe I won a lottery for that,
Mm.
and I'm forever grateful for it. And later in the years, I carried on wrestling. I made it to the Commonwealth Games. And I actually I always wanted to become a world champion at wrestling, but then unfortunate events happened that my Russian coach had to leave and move back to Russia, and still carried on with wrestling. And uh, then I knew I was getting too old, or I was getting old, so I needed to either make a living out of wrestling or find another way to
Mm.
make a living. And it's in South Africa, wrestling is also very small, so it's only known in a very small community of people, and so it's very difficult to make a living out of it. And so I wanted to study to become a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was really very fond of my artwork. I love doing art, and the idea was to go study art. And so I went to one of the school that I used to be in Pretoria. Um, I became an intern there, and I wanted to study through the school and so forth. But I enjoyed it actually. That was one of the best times of my
Mm.
career. But there was something that was missing in me. Like I just loved violent, or if I can say it, educated violence,
Right.
like
Yeah.
just getting involved in martial arts or in
Mm.
wrestling, and just
Controlled violence.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that was something beautiful for me. I think I enjoyed like being warrior, or if I can put it in that way.
Yeah.
And
Fighters are born. It's
yes,
it's something only fighters
yeah.
will understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and like it didn't sit well as much as I enjoyed what I was doing, working with other kids. After school, actually in the mornings, it was at 6 o'clock before school. I'll have a gym section where I actually let the kids from the school come train with me for free, because they had a gym at the school. So I'll
Mm.
give them a program to do and train with them, which was quite fun. They enjoyed it, and they actually got better athletes at school. And then I also do a training session with them after school, and then from then I will go coach or assist coach in the rugby school, rugby teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it. But I feel like there's still something missing.
Mm.
And I've always been fond of MMA. I remember always wanting to join MMA. Before I could even go in the school, I was even talking to my dad. I was like, Dad, maybe I should try out this MMA thing.
Mm.
I really love it. It's so cool. I can wrestle those guys there. I can keep doing what I do. And the nice thing is you get paid for it. So I
Mm.
can make a living out of it. And he kind of considered it, but he thought, whatever. Yeah. But he knew I had the potential to actually do very well at MMA.
Mm.
And one day I just called him, and I was like, oh, actually, then I wanted to join Medford because I still lived in Cape Town.
Right.
Yeah, then I was like, yeah. Then I was like, yeah, if I ever do MMA, I'm going to go to Medford and go train with Don Match, because I knew
Yes.
Don. I was like, oh, saw him from the TV. I was like, yeah, I'm going to train with that guy. And I'm still at school. I'm like, yeah, he's so good. Muay Thai fighter and all that.
Mm.
He's amazing. And once I moved to Joburg,
You couldn't. Mm.
yeah. So I was teaching and I couldn't. I just loved I was already doing something else with my life. And one day I just decided, no, I'm gonna just message the guys from Fight Fit or Richie Kwan,
Yep.
Coach Kwan at that time, or Fight Fit at that time. And I called my dad. It was the most nervous call I've ever done with my dad. I was nervous, but I was also knew, okay, he's in Cape Town. I'm in Pretoria, so
It's not
I'm a
face
bit
to face.
safe. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can say
Yeah.
what I feel.
You'll
And
just hear it on the phone and he'll be
yeah,
shouting you on the phone, but it's not the same as in
yeah,
person. Yeah.
yes,
I
yes,
know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. And I just took the chance. I was like, let me speak to him and hear what he thinks. And he said, look, because he helped me also get that intern job at the
Hmm.
school, And he said, look, you're taking a risk, and I will always support you in what you do. But just remember, you've already had a good job. You've
Mm.
already had a very nice job, and I really loved the job. And if you want to do it, then go do it. Go give it a try. I was like, Dad, I'm going to give it a try for a year. And if it doesn't work out, I can always find something else.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, you're leaving something very good for you. But if you want to do it, I'll be there to support you. And which was quite nice to hear from him.
That's awesome. That's what you want to
And
hear.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I took the chance. I went to Fight Fit Malaysia to Coach Kwan, and I loved every second of it. Just going back, walking onto the mat, knowing
Mm.
I'm gonna now wrestle. I'm gonna do what I love to do, and I'm gonna learn a new martial arts because
Yeah.
I came there with a bit of a mind of, oh, jiu-jitsu won't work on me. I'll just
Right.
wrestle them and keep them down,
Mm.
and that humbled me. Like
Yeah.
I wrestled them, but it humbled me.
Yeah.
Like every time I hit the floor, it was just a submission after submission after
Don't leave
submission.
your neck hanging. Nothing
Yes,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. Every lamp was just getting taken, and I was like, I was just in love with it, and
Mm.
I knew, okay, this is what I want to do.
Mm. Sorry, how long after you had after you'd wrestled between the last year that you wrestled and going to fight with militia? What was the break in between?
It was it was about 2 years because I still wrestled then, but I was not training.
Mm.
So I'll like do a tournament every now and then
Okay.
just to stay active. The only training I was doing is basically jamming with the kids in the school, and then helping them with the rugby tackles and all
Mm.
that. And that was about it. And I'll do competitions every now and then. So I wasn't as active, and I wasn't as much involved in wrestling than I was. And I really decided to take that chance
Mm.
because, yeah, it was as much as I loved what I was doing, it felt like that was missing.
Mm. You got to back yourself. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yes. And I thought, look, if I do it, I'm just going to put my head down and just do it.
Mm.
And went to Coach Kwan. They loved me there. They were very welcoming, very tough. It was just a different kind of training.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought wrestling is a tough training session, but now you have to do different martial arts. So now you have to train 3-4 times a day, and you have to like keep up with that. That was the challenging part. And yeah, and I did it. I had a few amateur fights.
Got 6 in 1 year,
Yes, yes,
basically.
yes.
What is
And
the story behind that? Because that's a lot. That's like every 2 month average. Like what made you do so many? Was it just because you could and you wanted to get it all out the way, or why 6 in the first year?
not even I was enjoying what I was doing. And the thing is, at Coach Kwan, the standards are set so high, and the amount of training that we did, I had to. They had a thing that amateurs must train harder than pros
Mm-hmm.
in order to make it, and that's what we did. I just did session after session. I helped where I could, did classes where I could. I even stayed in the gym for 2 years,
Wow.
and I just grinded my backside off, and I enjoyed it. Well, not living in the gym and all that, but just I got the chance to compete,
Mm.
and that gave me that opportunity to compete. And I feel like staying in the gym for 2 years at that time, I feel like it put me, if not 4 or 5 years ahead of the game, because martial arts is such a difficult sport to learn. And yeah, I fought 6 fights within that year, and then no one wanted to fight me. But I was injury free, so whenever I could get a chance, I just competed.
Mm.
I just competed, and I was not trying to get pro as fast as I can. I was just loving the competition. I was just loving it. I could feel how every fight I was just getting better. I was becoming less of a wrestler and becoming more of a martial artist.
Mm.
And really, then Rich believed I was ready to turn pro, which was it was quite nice to know,
Yeah.
you know. And I had my first pro fight in December 2017, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a very quick fight. It was probably, I think, about, it happened like 2 minute fight. But I just picked the guy up, ran across the cage with
Yeah.
him, threw him, ground and pounded him, and then got a submission.
Mm.
And it was beautiful. And I just knew I wanted to do this, you know. And it came easily because I knew the guys I trained with, they were such killers, man, you know. And I knew that if I can hang with those guys, that means I'll be able to hold my own in a fight.
Mm.
And that's what happened. And so it led me to where I am today. But after my first pro fight, then I kind of knew that I want to become a world champ, you know. And I knew Rich system and everything had the ability to make me a world champ. And I still believe we're still under the Coach Kwan system, or the Kwan vessel system. I believe that system is a very great system to make me a world champ, and I still believe that because of that, I am going to become a world champion.
No, for sure. And you're still in that system now at Madfit.
Yeah.
When did you then, and why did you move away from Johannesburg back to Cape Town?
Okay. Yeah, so I moved actually during the load shedding. Yeah, so that load shedding actually made everyone's life difficult in South Africa. So during that time, I decided to move, you know, to come spend time with my family, because we actually didn't know when it was going to end and what was going to happen. And then I was actually coming to move just to see my family, you know, and then probably go back later on. And while I was chilling at home, and you know, Don was like, "Hey, man, if you want to train at Medford, you're more than welcome to go train." And yeah, and then I decided, geez, why not? If I'm already here at home and Medford uses the Coach Kwan system, I might as well also move this side and train out of here. And there's short partners, smaller guys here in Cape Town for me to train with, and which was quite cool. So, and I thought, okay, I should make that move. And I spoke to Rich and spoke to Don about it, had a meeting, and they were quite happy with me moving. And so I decided to move to Medford. And since then, we've been following the system, and we've been doing great with it.
And I'm sure it does wonders for your stand-up as well, being with someone with
Oh, yes.
the level of Don Madge's Muay Thai.
Oh, yeah, big time, you know. This is the crazy thing. Everyone knows Don for his Muay Thai, but you must see his wrestling. You must see his jiu-jitsu. And his wrestling is actually insane. It's incredible. He's very smart. He picked it up so quick, and it was just amazing to see him throughout the years, how he just kept on evolving with wrestling. And his jiu-jitsu game is also quite scary. So he was really going to surprise the world with his wrestling. And I'm very bummed that he can't actually show that. And
it's unfortunate, man. I actually became a fan of his with his Costa Iwanu fight. And I told him this as well because my friend had showed me Don Madge because my friend was a kickboxer, and from his kickboxing days. And he's like, yeah, he's gone into MMA now. Like, he's really good. He's young. Like, he's fighting well. But his ground game might be his weakness. And he's fighting Costa Iwanu, was all about the ground game.
Yeah.
And then we watched that fight, and I said to Don as well, I was like, I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for you to like get dominated on the ground. It never happened.
Yeah.
And it was just like down to his work ethic. And he said how much work he had to put in for that fight. And it's it just goes to show, like you say, I mean, that's now one of his strong points.
Yeah.
Well, actually, all of his parts of MMA doesn't really have a weak point, so they're all good. But to bring that up to the level of his world class Muay Thai, it just goes to show the work ethic that he's had his entire career and still has.
Yeah, and Don has insane work ethic. In the MMA community, there's two guys that, or, that I know, I'll say, that really are hard workers, and that's Dimart Pena
Mm-hmm.
and Don.
Mm.
And I've seen those guys work in and work out. Look, MMA in general, there's a lot of hard work that you put in, but the two guys that I looked up to according to the work ethic for me was Don and Dimart Pena. Those guys are always working. Whether they're injured or not, they still come to the gym and all that. And so they keep learning, they keep getting better by just visualizing, by just looking, and which is quite cool. That's something to look up to for any fighter. That's what you must look up to do. And because of that, that's why he, um, they've both evolved so much. But right, speaking of Don, he's evolved so much. He's changed. His style just got better, which is quite cool. It's nice to see that you can actually evolve within martial arts because there's so much to learn, and that's what every fighter should actually look up to. I still look up to that. I look up to Don as a fighter because he's got something special. He's got this work ethic that not a lot of people have. That's like one of the 5% in the world that probably have such work ethic, and it's nice for youngsters to look up to that, and to also know it's not just instant gratification. A lot of people see what happens in fight and they're like, oh, I want to become a fighter. I remember in back in the days in Fight Fit, every a lot of guys came in there wanting to become fighters. I remember coming with a group of guys, all wanting to become fighters. And slowly, when time went by, the group just became less. And it showed that the, everyone saw what was happening. They saw the Conor McGregors, the John Jones. They saw what happened outside or
The
what happened
success.
in the fight. Yes, the success, but they didn't see what happens in the background, where nobody's watching, where you have to put on the work. And that broke a lot of people. And that's why I think the people that thinks MMA or are easy to judge fighters on the fights and everything, they must just do MMA themselves. Just go train at least a day with the fighters and see how much work it's put in. Then it won't be so hard to judge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. And so you had your first fight, and then you went through the EFC's fighting top names, even like Lutando Biko as well. In your
Yeah.
second fight, beating him, he ended up
Yeah.
being, I think he's now also fighting overseas, another name.
Yeah.
But there's one fight that I wanted to ask you about, was the Popeye fight.
Yeah.
I want to pull it up if you don't mind. I just want to get sort of your thoughts about that. You said that was the first fighter that properly got under your skin. I want to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that. If you, I just for those of you that haven't maybe seen, maybe I'll just pull it up quickly. Let me just get it. Hold on a second. Okay, this we have to cut out how I'm searching for it. But
Okay, cool. Do you want me to talk while the fight's happening?
yeah, I think so. There
Okay.
won't be sound,
Okay.
but okay, cool. So okay, just a brief background quickly. We don't have to watch the whole video because it is not 9 minutes long. But
Yep.
just it's particularly in this weigh-in part, like, what's the why? What was the backstory with him being the way he is? So like, you can see it in your face already. Maybe we should just have a look at show everybody what we're looking at. I mean, in terms of intense stare downs, this is about as intense as it gets.
Yeah. So at that time, that they thought, okay, we're gonna come here. This is a small kid. We're just gonna get over him. We're just gonna beat him up quick and done. Cause he fought before he had fought me. Now, he previously fought one of the Bursky brothers. I don't know if it's Gareth Bursky or one of the brothers. I'm not too sure who he fought, but he's a very big guy, and he lost by decision. uh, Popeye, but he was actually he was giving the guy a run of his money. And I think he thought, okay, if I could beat someone that big, who's this guy to come in here, you know? And then he started getting in my face. You know, I was about to shake his hand and be like, yeah, we fight tomorrow, all good. And then he just kept on aggravating me, and I was like, okay, you know what, screw this. He kept on giving me funny looks at the
Press conferences.
yes, background, and he kept on saying all of that, giving me all those funny looks. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna zap this guy at weigh-ins. Yeah, so that was after all of this had happened, after him pushing me and getting in my face. So I zapped him at the weigh-ins, and I was like, the next day I'm just gonna unleash. I'm just gonna unleash the beast in me, and I'm just gonna do whatever I want to do with him. And that's what I did. And crazy enough, this fight became very well known around the world, which was quite nice. And like, but the idea was for me to just demolish and not even care what happens.
Yeah.
But something special came out.
For
and
sure.
It was a very well known fight.
No, for sure. I want to have a bit of to see your. So like while you're fighting now, is it hard for the emotions not to get the best of you
Yeah,
in this moment?
I'm quite impressed it didn't, but every now and then it will come out. But the most important thing as
Oh,
a
nice.
fighter is to listen to your corner, and all they said is just keep moving your head. He's not gonna catch you because he throws a lot of hooks, and they told me to keep my left hand up, my right hand up. Sorry. And that's what I kept on doing, keeping the right hand up, and just throwing straight punches through. And just keep using head movement and just keep moving. If I can't take him down, it's all right. I must just keep going again, and I must just stay busy, you know. And it actually worked out well, and it somehow became a very well-known fight around the world, which was quite nice. Yeah.
And let me just get past these ads. Sorry, I don't have YouTube Premium. I like, yeah, there we go. There's a ninja style
That
there.
kick, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy enough, we practiced the kick or played around with it. It was actually not practiced in training, but after training, we'll play around with it. Rich will hold the pad and be like, yeah, do that kick again. And then it's just like aim for the pad, and then I'll do the kick. Or there used to be a small ball hanging on top of at the gym, or they hanging from the roof. And then he'd like kick this ball, and then I'll do a flip and I kick the ball, or I'll just do that spinning kick and kick the ball. And that somehow came out naturally in the fight what was happening. But I did
Rich call
listen
for that, or did you
yes,
just feel that?
yes, he did. He actually did call. He's like, yeah, do the kick, you know, like go have fun when you fight, you know.
Yeah.
He just tell me just be you, because you fight better when you become yourself. And that's what happened. There was emotion, but I think the creative side of me was also out there, you know. And I just put that energy together, and I just put it in a fight, and it just worked out perfect.
Could you see in this fight his like attitude towards you change? Because it looked like he was very like, like he was at the weigh-ins, very like posturing up and very confident and everything. But then it's like after a couple of shots, especially when you dropped him in that first couple of minutes, you kind of on the video can see his whole posture change. Could you feel that?
Yeah, I couldn't at the time, but I've noticed every time I look at my fight after it's crazy how they mentally break, because after a while they're like, okay, I knew he was strong, but I didn't know he was that strong, and like that keeps breaking them. And every time I see in the fights, I see how they actually break slowly, which is quite nice to see, because that's what you want to do, you know. If a fight goes to let's say 5 rounds or 3 rounds, and without knocking the guy out or submitting him, that means you have to break them mentally and physically. And I actually see that in the fights every time I fight, which is quite nice.
The strength is one thing I also wanted to ask you about, dude. Where does that come from? Is that gym work? Is that natural? Is that just years of wrestling? Because there's a video as all of you in EFC, and the guy's got an omoplata on you, and you literally just stand up. And this is at 135 pounds. You literally just stand up with him on your arm, and I'm like, and you deadlift basically you deadlift 140, which is like your pounds weight pretty much. So it's like almost 2.5 times your body weight. Where does that come from?
I think a bit of that it's natural, but I say also the years of wrestling, because it's basically in a squatted position the whole time when you wrestle. And but saying that, I also gotten stronger with time. When I started MMA, I became much more stronger, and I feel like I became a better wrestler with when I started MMA. So I think it has to do with the training that I went through, and I also think there's a part of me that it's been natural strength, because as far as I remember as a kid, I've also been quite strong, and I think I just gotten stronger with time, which is quite nice. So
It
yeah,
served you well as well, because
yes.
there's one of your overseas fights as well where the guy you're on his back, and he's got a kimura locked up, and you're just like, oh well, I'm gonna just ignore this kimura and just suplex him over the top.
Yes, yes. So that was a fight in Pancrase.
Yeah, that's
That
the
was the
Pancras
fight
fight.
that actually got me into one championship.
Mm.
Crazy enough, with that fight, I was still trying to get into one championship back then, because I really like the way they portray martial art, and the way they the way they portray martial art in general, and how they have different styles of martial arts and all that. So I really wanted to compete in one, and I've been trying to get into one. So I was lucky enough to fight in Pancrase, and I was trying to get a full contract with them, but they gave me a one fight contract. So I thought, okay, what I'm gonna do is give my biggest performance I can in order to stay into the promotion. And the
Utterly
guy,
dominant.
yes, yeah. So the guy, I wrestled him, and I just
You
threw, I
literally
think,
threw him around.
yes, five
Yeah.
suplexes in that fight.
Yeah.
And Chris Cyborg at that time was training with us, preparing for one of the fights in Bellator. And she actually messaged one of the friends in one, and like, hey, check this guy that I train with, and check how good he is. And the next day, one actually offered me a contract.
Wow. The very next day.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah. They literally emailed me the next day offering me to fight for them,
Wow.
which was quite nice. So that fight actually was also a very life changing fight. Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know Pancreas. Sorry, to cut you off, but I didn't know Pancreas was still around, because I still know Pancreas from the days when Boss Rutan was fighting there.
yeah, yeah,
So it's good to see that they're still around. I mean, I saw them come float in and out kind of events and things, but I'm not
yeah,
like looking for them. So,
yeah,
but it's one of the OG MMA
yeah,
organizations from
yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah, crazy enough, they still around. They don't run as much competitions as they used to, but they still around. They still have international fights every now and then. And I was lucky enough at that time. They
To be
they were
on one.
offering, yeah, and that just changed my career. Oh, that changed my life, and that fight put me into one championship, which was quite nice. Yeah,
You mentioned Chris Cyborg, and it's really good to hear that she put her neck on the line for you as well, because she
yeah,
did the same for Don Madge with the UFC.
yeah,
And she was is still and was back then a massive superstar in MMA,
yeah,
and she just seems, from what I've seen and what people have said, to be one of the most, again, humble, nicest people that's willing to put her neck on the line, like I say, for you, for Don, and I'm sure there's been others as well.
yeah. Chris Cyborg actually leads by example of what an athlete should be. You know, she gets bad comments, she gets backlashes in the internet, in social media. But once you meet her, then you understand what kind of a person she is. I'm not saying just because she got me the contract into one, but the fact that she came and she was so humble the first day she came into South Africa, or when she came into Coach Kwan, she was one of the most humblest person I've ever met, and she was willing to do a job, and she was willing to help whenever she could, and it shows how good human beings can be. And she's a very prime example of that. Yeah,
No, 100%. From everything I've seen, it's
yeah,
and
she's
what
so
other people talk
amazing.
about her.
Yeah,
I see she's boxing now.
Yeah, yeah,
So she's gone. Yeah, she's gone on to big and, well, I don't want to say bigger, better things, but the next big thing. And
yeah,
she's really is showing she's a true martial artist. I mean, she's doing MMA, and now she's going
yeah.
into a singular martial art.
Yeah, the fact that she can actually do it all, or do all different kind of things. She's I don't know, I think she's black belt now
Mm-hmm.
in jiu-jitsu, and now she's boxing, and she's the greatest of all time in MMA woman, in my opinion. And she's doing the most, and
Mm,
that's a very good thing to look up to,
mm,
as a fighter, female, male fighter. That's the type of woman you should look up to as a sports person.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
So after Pancreas, you said you got the call the next day, for One FC, and obviously that's life changing because
Yeah.
everybody knows. Well, they're not called One FC anymore; they're just called One now. Um, so what's it been like? What are some of the main differences? Okay, firstly, what were some of the main differences from EFC versus Pancreas, and then from Pancreas to One FC that you kind of noticed, just in the organization, and then obviously in the fights and the crowd and everything.
Yeah, look, EFC has given us all the platform in South Africa, in Africa, to be recognized around the world, which is amazing. And I hope they keep doing the great work where the other organization or other big organization recognizes us.
Mm.
And it just got better every time, like according to Pancrase. It was first scary for me because I'm fighting away from home. So, and weird enough, fighting in Asia has been such a blessing. Just there was less noise. They literally sit and they just clap if you do something
Especially
cool. Clap.
Japan.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it was quite nice. I performed in Japan, and you could hear the murmurs and all that, which was quite crazy.
Mm.
But it was nice to experience this different lifestyle, of martial arts. And it was a bigger event, and then you get one which is actually even much bigger, and it just gotten bigger and bigger. And the scariest part for me was before getting into the fight, the
Mm.
walkout, seeing at that time in my first fight I fought the biggest crowd then. It was 16,000 people.
Mm.
And I walked out there and I was like, geez, this place is filled.
Mm.
And it
And it's a
was just,
closed arena as well, so it's
yes,
like you feel it as well.
yes. And it was just like, just everywhere you look, everyone's sitting in their seats with shining their cell phones, or they were shining torches and stuff.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, this is something else. I know I'm fighting at the international stage right now. And then you walk in and get into the cage, and you realize you're doing what you've been doing since as an amateur fighter,
Mm.
from the first days of amateur fighting in in the school halls and all that. It's exactly the same thing. You're just getting in there. It's you and the other person, your coach and the other person's coach, and everything else was different. But the only thing that didn't change was the fact that you're fighting someone on the other side that has prepared for you for months, and someone that you've also prepared for months for.
Mm.
And it's just you have to be there to understand that feeling.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that first fight, it's another one I just want to get your reaction to, because
Oh, so this was my second fight.
no,
That
there's
was
a,
the knockout. Yeah,
oh,
my
right.
first ever knockout I've ever actually thrown.
Why's the sound on? Apologies.
So yeah, this was my second fight in one championship, but my first ever knockout. And yeah, this was something special. We crazy
Dude,
enough.
how do you do that, man? And that, like,
Oh jeez.
just, uh,
So the me floating as I kicked the guy was actually unplanned. The plan was he's because he's a very great striker, Rene Catalan,
mm.
and wushu fighter, so he had a very good striking background. But I knew my wrestling was more superior to his, and so I knew that he's gonna be very aware of it. And so what our game plan was, I strike or strike to close the distance, and clinch or go for a rest, shoot for a double leg, shoot for high dive, and from then if they break off, either throw a punch or either throw a kick. And we practice, you break off, you throw a punch, you break off, you throw that left kick. And crazy enough, I tried it the first time. I grabbed, we striked, I grabbed him, he broke off, and I threw, and I could feel my toe just touch him. And I was like, okay, next time he breaks, I must just close the space more. And it just happened. But at the moment, I didn't even feel myself float as I kicked them. I only saw it after when I got interviewed. And I was like, oh, did I just do that? And that was like something special, like, to get a first knockout like that and against someone that's good at stand-up was just incredible.
100%. And then that was one of the most viral moments of 1FC's, or I keep saying 1FC, of One, since its inception, but particularly because as he hit the canvas, you went to punch and saw he was knocked out and left it, so showing good self-restraint for the referee having to pull you off. And that's one of the things that people actually commended you on.
I think also, as much as I'd like to take credit for that, 1FC is known for that. If you look at some of the other fights, there's fights where guys actually pull off before fights. Since then, I've realized how many of the fights where people actually have a chance to finish, but they don't finish the opponent because they see the opponent is already done. And I think that energy already itself played a very important role in that. And also, it was my first knockout, so everything happened so slow that I was very aware of what was happening, if that makes sense. I was aware that this guy is out, but my next reaction was to go and punch him because I saw him fall down and just get on top and punch. And as I saw that, I saw him unconscious, and I knew, okay, he's out. And I was like, okay, hands up, celebrate, and just do flips and enjoy yourself.
There's no point going for it, again, because he's already out.
Yeah, and I think my job was done there, After seeing him out unconscious, I knew, okay, it's done. It's done, until the ref came in and closed the space. And,
and it's so that was the second fight, and then you'd started to get sort of like a ninja style again, a ninja nickname again, and that's what this video is about. Is it more appreciated, do you think, in One, because like if I look at wrestling, for example, in like WWE type wrestling, in like New Japan Pro Wrestling, they like a lot more of like the high flying acrobatic stuff. So is it the same on that side? Do you hear more reactions to that kind of style?
Yes, I definitely do, because most of the time when I fight, crazy, in Asia, every time I fight, someone will fight first and then you'll hear the clapping and all that. But sometimes when I fight, I just hear the murmurs and all that. And usually I do hear it, but it's usually after the fight when I rewatch it, and then you actually hear that there were murmurs and stuff. So that means they like my style of fighting. And the thing is, I'm not trying to show off. It's just that I like fighting like that. It's my style of fighting. So it's the style that I enjoy. If I go out and just go enjoy myself, everyone else unconsciously enjoys what I'm doing, which is quite nice. And also, as much as it's a fight game, it's also entertaining. It's an entertainment game. We're trying to get as much people to watch, or as much people to become part of the sport. And yes, there's already knocking someone out that's entertaining, but just grabbing a guy and taking them to the ground is not as entertaining. But if you've got the moves to take him to the ground in different ways, why not do it? And of course, the goal is to win. But if you can win in style, why not?
It must be quite demoralizing being belly to back suplexed with the guy's back,
Yeah, and I think so some people say, it's harder to lose. Know someone has dominated you for 4 or 5 rounds straight
Mm.
than just to losing with a quick knockout, because you can always say, "Oh, that was luck."
Mm.
But if someone dominates you for 5 rounds, then it's like, "Oh, okay, this guy actually beat me."
Mm.
If there was no ref or if there was no time limit, that means this guy would have beat me until he decided that he's done.
Mm.
And that's my idea to fighting. I must first make sure I win every round as dominant as I can, and everything else that comes around it, that's just a bonus for me to play around with or to have fun with.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, to eventually, if there wasn't a referee, the person would eventually someone would have to give up, and it wouldn't be the person that's been dominating for the last
Yeah.
five rounds,
Yes.
unless they're like super tired.
Yeah.
So just looking forward, obviously you're not going to look past your next opponent. You want to beat him, and then, like you say, hopefully a title fight. Is there anything you would change from your first fight? Firstly, for Hiroba Manoa, and then for Jared Brooks, should you get past, which you obviously plan on doing, get past him.
Yeah. So first thing is, I'm considering myself lucky to be able to have this fight again against Horibo, because I missed hydration last, and I feel like he could have accepted the fight, but he chose not to, which is fair enough on his side. It was his decision to make at the end of the day. But I've been working on my diet, eating clean, making sure everything is up to date. And Horibua has got very good grappling,
Mm-hmm.
but his overall game is actually quite good. So I had to make sure that my overall game is very good. And crazy thing, what he doesn't know is he told me that I only rely on my strength and I only rely on my athleticism. So this time I worked more on my technique. And the crazy thing, I've been working on my technique, and this time I just worked on more. So that I, I took that as something that I don't see that he probably saw.
Mm.
And I've been working a lot of my technique, and which is quite nice. I got submitted by Jared Brooks last time for giving my back,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went back to the gym and I worked on my jiu-jitsu. So I decided to work on the things that I was actually bad at, or the things that I struggled at. And as much as it's got good grappling, my wrestling will be more superior than his.
For sure. And against Haribo Manoa, you got to just watch out for his flexibility. There's one
Yes.
video where in his debut where he was getting kimura'd, and literally was like his head was touching his hand.
Yeah, it's very
So
flexible.
yeah,
Yeah.
so joint locks, maybe go for the chokes if you go for submissions. No, I'm kidding. Whatever's there
No,
is there.
definitely, he's a very durable fighter. He's won by decision. He's lost by decision. So it shows that he can actually last throughout the rounds. But my goal is to do what I'm good at, and just put on a statement into the division that there's no choice but to give me a title shot.
100%.
And next is fighting Jared Brooks. Like I said last time, he beat me fair and square, and would have not liked to have lost like that, but that's part of the game. Anything can happen. But this time, I have to first focus on Manoa and get past that, and then put my focus on Jared. My focus has always been becoming a world champion, and right now Manoa is standing in my way, and that's the first person I need to get past in order to get closer to becoming a world champion.
100%. And then when you win a world title, you obviously plan on bringing it back to South Africa for your friends, your family, and everything. But do you think you would go back to the orphanage and just, do some sort of a motivational talk, or maybe just a day there just to show kids, I came from here, don't lose hope, or that kind of thing, and always reach for your dreams kind of thing?
Yes, that's definitely what I want to do. The fact that I always wanted to be the best in the world, and the path that I've walked with people in my life saw what I want to achieve, and when I achieve that, I have to go back and let every other kid understand in the orphanage that it's actually possible. Anyone can do whatever they put their mind to,
Mm.
and doesn't matter how long it takes. Some people, they're lucky enough to take a day, two, might take years, but it's actually possible. And not giving up on your dream. There's so many things in life that can throw you off your dream. Sometimes you get off it, but you have to find a way back.
Mm.
And a few times in my life that has happened, and I'm grateful enough to be still on that path of becoming a world champion.
Mm.
And not just the kids in the orphanage. I just wanna. There's a big change that has happened in South Africa, that even though our government and political side is kind of making it hard for South Africans to live, it feels like we've become more closer. We're starting to see less color and becoming more as one, which is
Mm.
amazing. So I wanna motivate, or I wanna be able to encourage that this generation of South Africans to understand that it's possible.
Mm.
Like, it doesn't matter what background you have. It's possible to become whatever you put your mind to, which
Mm.
is quite nice.
Yeah, and I think you'd be the perfect example for something like that. Most
Yeah.
definitely. And I think also if one ever has plans of coming to Africa, we've had that UFC coming to Africa discussion as well, and South Africa is the only place that it realistically can come to that has everything. And if they're looking for an ambassador, you're gonna be front and
I,
center for that.
I'll be always ready for that, and I'd love to be. I'd love to be the first guy to say, the first guy in one to say, hey, I'm the first African fighter to become a world champion. I'm my first African world champion in one
Mm.
championship, and come to Africa. Make an event in Africa.
Mm.
See how much talent we actually have here, and sign more Africans. And I must sign it because of the work I've done, or the part that I've played, or the
Mm.
role that I've played. And hopefully that happens one day.
Yeah, I'm sure it's only an inevitability. I know one has some plans to go to the US probably first, but I don't see why they couldn't do US and Africa at the same time. But maybe after the UFC's here and they see how successful it is, and the people actually come here and, like you say, see how many talented people we have here in the MMA space
Yeah.
and jiu-jitsu, because one does jiu-jitsu and
Jiu-jitsu,
Muay Thai and everything.
yes,
It's,
yeah, it's
you
it's
know,
amazing. So it's actually, this is a great opportunity. I always say I'm only a speck of dust of what talent there is here in Africa.
mm,
Some people are like, "Oh, you're so talented in Asia." I'm like, you should see the rest of the guys
mm,
here.
yeah,
Sometimes you get hit and you're like, you should have seen the other guy. This time they're like, yo, you're so good. I'm like, you must see the other guys.
yeah,
Like, there's so much talent here, and I think I'm grateful enough to be like that ambassador, to be like, wow, you're African, you fight out of Africa.
mm,
Wow, how can you fight so good? Geez, you must see the guys here. And it's just getting better. Like, give it a few more years and watch how Africa's gonna take over the MMA industry.
I think everybody just needs a guided path of, to say, if you've got people, we've seen it with boxing,
Yeah.
in the combat sports world. We see it with some African football teams. We see it with rugby in South Africa. Um, there's a guided path, and there's a set from start to finish. This is how you go from being whatever age, 8 years old, 7 years old, whenever you start, going all the way through
Yeah.
to turning professional. So once that happens, like Cameron and Dricus are doing a lot of that with
Yeah.
Little Legends.
Yeah.
Then there's also the amateur events. They've got Versus. Don's also got
Yeah.
amateur events. So the more that keeps happening, eventually people are going to see. And then when they look back, like we look back on Hoist Gracie and the guys that started with the UFC, it's going to be
Geez, yeah.
you, Don, and everybody else, Dricus and Cameron, and even the people that there's still a host of fighters before them
Yeah.
as well. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah. The idea is to grow MMA, to grow mixed martial arts as much as we can. And like you said, Simon and Drinkers are doing a good job in Pretoria, and now we've got Richie also expanding the school
Mm-hmm.
in Joburg, and we've got Don here, Don and Matt. They've also now starting to make fighting organizations or promotions,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite cool. That's the idea. We wanna keep growing the sport as much as we can, and we wanna look forward into bringing as much fighters as we can into mixed martial arts because we believe Africans, it's this is where we shine.
Mm.
We, geez, we all have the right genes for fighting. With the food we eat and everything.
Mm.
And this is the perfect time
Centuries of
for us.
conflict.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is the perfect time for us to actually stand out, and mixed martial arts is one of those platforms
Mm.
for Africans to really shine. And like, geez, I'm really excited for the next coming years for African MMA.
Mm. Sleeping giant.
Yeah, yeah, they're waking up the sleeping giants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got a few fans to submit some questions. I don't know if
Okay.
you would be keen to answer some.
Oh yes, I'm keen.
Let me grab my phone. So thank you to you guys and girls that have submitted your questions. For those of you that would like to submit questions in the future, have a look at my Instagram, my Facebook, and my YouTube. I post quite regularly there before the guests come on. So we asked you to ask some questions to BK. So the first question is from Matt in the City. This was on Instagram. His question is, what was the toughest fight you've ever had? That's the first part. And then the second part you've kind of answered, but maybe we can go into a little bit of depth, is would you switch to another organization given the chance?
So the toughest fight I've actually had was supposed to be one of my easiest fights, and that was against Hand Grenade.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name now, but he was called the Hand Grenade as his fighting nickname. I actually, a week before the fight, I got sick and I started getting shingles. I think they call it shingles,
Yeah.
yeah, from all the stress and all that. And started getting flu. And on the day of the fight, I literally slept the whole day. And I literally woke up to warm up and just went into fight.
Wow.
And I could feel getting cramps at the end of the fight. But that was supposed, because I was very fit for that fight. I was everything. My fitness was great. My technique and all that was supposed to be. I was supposed to put on a show for that fight, and somehow because of that, it became my hardest fight actually. And on that, asking if I'll ever move to a promotion, I believe I'll move if I get a better offer. I'm quite happy with one championship and how they just carry themselves and how they promote fighters and all that. I really like that about them. But at the end of the day, we're making a living, MMA right now, they pay us good as fighters, but we don't get the payment we deserve. So let me actually don't say they pay us good, but we make enough to make a living. But we can get better pays. So I believe any fighter that will get a better offer from anywhere else, they'll rather take that.
Mm.
Because we take so much damage and the amount of training that we put in, it's insane. I never get a lot of time to spend with my family or friends. I will train Monday to Saturday, and Saturday I'm tired. I sleep the whole day, and then Sunday I'll just go for a walk and come back tired. Have to do my washing. Have to do my everything else that I have to do.
Everyday life.
Yes, and then I don't have time to spend with anyone. So it's really hard. It's a tough industry to be in, and yeah, and that's my opinion on that.
Mm. Okay. The next question is, let's get one here. Okay, so this one is from Neil. This is also on Instagram. It's from Neil89VR. So at what age did you start training in martial arts? You've already told us with wrestling from 7, 8 years old. But the second part to this question is, what was the second martial art that you learned?
Yeah, so I started at 8 years old. I started wrestling then, and the second thing I learned was jiu-jitsu actually, because while I wrestled, I actually tried out a jiu-jitsu competition, and I came second.
Mm,
But that was the second. But the one I kind of enjoyed and leaned a bit into was boxing,
mm,
and it's not the second one I learned, but it's one that I quite enjoyed, and that's what I've been doing recently for the last few years with MedFit, with Matt. He's a very great boxing coach, and so I've been enjoying those sessions quite a lot.
mm. And it shows. It shows that you're enjoying when you're striking,
Yeah.
all of it, boxing and the
Oh,
kickboxing
geez,
aspect.
yeah, that's amazing. The Muay Thai, the striking classes with Don Match. Oh, they're
Yeah,
so cool.
no
Yeah.
one better to learn from, eh?
Yes, yeah, learning from the best.
Exactly. Okay. So the next question is on YouTube. Actually, this one is from Physio Mel. It's, which ninja school did you go to?
Oh, geez. I'll say, you guys think I'm a ninja. You guys must see Richie Kwan.
Yeah.
I think that's the, that's the best thing to say. Kwan Vessel, go roll with Richie Kwan whenever you get a chance to go to Joburg, or if you're in Joburg, go look for a gym called Kwan Vessel, and you'll see what kind of a ninja Richie is.
Mm.
He's incredible. He's a ninja and he's Yoda at the same time, so it's incredible.
Yeah, he's doing some interesting stuff just on Richie. I mean, he's outside of just the martial arts stuff. I see a lot of like combat, like army combat stuff as well that he's doing.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
So I only also know as much as I see on Instagram, but I'll say one thing I can say is, if anything happens and there's an apocalypse, the first person I'm running to is Richie Kwan, because I think he'll be the last person on earth to survive.
He'll have all the
So
tools.
yeah, so one guy that I think is impossible to kill, and one guy that if the world just relied on hand-to-hand combat, or just combat, he'll be the last person to
You
survive.
phone him straight up.
Yeah,
Come to
yeah,
Cape Town. Or you go up to Joburg.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if anything happens that we get zombies or whatever, I'm running to Rich. I've already made my mind up, and no one can change that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let me know. Let me know how to get there. I'll go there. I'll go with you. Okay, so there's a few parts to this. So this is from Facebook. This is from someone named Connor Bam. He said I can pick whichever one, but I think maybe I'd like to ask.
We can go for all of it.
Yeah, I think let's go for all. I think the second part of it has already kind of been answered, but we can ask it. So the first one is, what are the chances of seeing Little Giant versus Mighty Mouse?
Yeah, so this is the question that a lot of people has asked me, and some people say I remind them of Mighty Mouse as a fighter, and the style wise, and our styles are quite similar but different in a way. I'd love to have a super fight with Mighty Mouse one day, and hopefully I get that opportunity before he retires, because I believe he's in his last few years of martial arts. But if I ever get that chance, I'll definitely take it.
No, for sure. Just gotta keep grinding and keep working, and
yes, sir.
What happens, happens.
Yes,
you know?
sir.
That'd be an interesting
Definitely.
fight, eh?
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's also got a.
He's so amazing.
Dude,
Yeah.
that suplex to armbar that he did against Ray Borg
Oh,
was
geez.
just also
Yeah,
like.
that's like a technique that no one else has ever done in the world.
Yeah.
It's basically, that's his technique, which is quite nice.
Yes, exactly. Okay, the second part, I'll get to if there's time, and then the last one I'd just say, who's your dream opponent, retired or active? And I'll add something to this as well, if I may. Weight class was not an issue.
Okay, because that's what I was gonna go for.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would have said dream fight will be GSP. I really liked his style of fighting back then, and I liked how he just kept on evolving with the years, and he just gotten better as a martial artist. And so I think I would have loved to fight GSP.
GSP.
His striking and his ground game is so great that it would have been a nice tester for me. Yeah.
And if weight was an issue,
If
so if
weight
it was in
was
your weight class,
if it was in my weight class, I would have gone for Mighty Mouse.
Mighty
That's
Mouse.
the fight that I'll really like, because
Mm.
when I started fighting, they're like, "Yeah, you're so good. You know this guy Mighty Mouse," and I had to go search him. And every now and then, I'll hear his name, Mighty Mouse, Mighty Mouse. So that's the one person that I'd like to fight in my weight class. He's a weight class higher, but I'm so close that
If you got time to
possible for
prep.
me. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay. The last part of it we have kind of covered, but again, it's very specific now.
Okay.
It's similar to the first question is, what's the chances of us seeing you in the UFC in the future?
Yeah, it's a great chance. There's so much opportunity in the fight game that you might even see me in other different promotions, or you might see me stay with one. The biggest thing for me is being able to enjoy what I do. So either way, you'll see me in martial arts, whether it's still in one, or whether it's still in the UFC, or whether it's in any other promotion. You will see me in the martial art industry, and you'll probably hear of my name a lot more within the coming years.
Most definitely. And like you said, there's a lot of opportunity for everybody. I think you had a great organization in one. I really enjoy what they're doing, not just for MMA, but for martial arts in general. And definitely in a good place to be there.
Yeah, right now I'm basically in the most viewed organization in the world. The reason why it's not as much viewed in the West, it's because it hasn't gotten attraction there. It's more known by the diehard fans of MMA. But ONE FC is starting to move more west, which is quite nice. So you might not even see me in the UFC. You might see me in one a lot more, and one might be bigger in the West, and that means you'll be able to see me more.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your questions, guys and girls. If there's a question that you'd like to ask for future guests, please do look at my Instagram, my Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, because I'll be posting it there. And hopefully your question can be asked. And BK, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to the fight in I don't know, by the time this airs, it's probably about 2.5 weeks away, maybe 3 weeks away. So I'm really looking forward to you putting on a show and getting that statement victory like you plan on doing.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it was such an honor to be in your podcast, and very excited for the future. And yeah, I'm always willing to be back into your podcast again.
Of course.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast, and hopefully you'll see more of me with Alex. So
100%. Yeah, maybe you and Don together as well. That would be a good one.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
that'll be nice.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, BK.
Very good idea. Thanks, Alex.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Awesome. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that clip, I've got another one for you over here and over here. Please don't forget to subscribe over here, and have a look at my other socials down in the description box below. Thanks for watching.